I had a go at making this one earlier in the week, but I decided that I wasn't quite feeling it. So we're going to have a go at making this now. We'll see how we go. I accidentally explained something really well to someone, and I thought I would have a go at explaining it here. So if, like me, you can't give yourself over fully to people who seem a little bit woo, like there's a lot of stuff that I think is really valuable in sort of more spiritually, yoga and meditation type spaces. But like part of me is always a little skeptical, not because I don't believe them, because I think that if enough people report an experience, there's got to be something there surely. But hopefully you'll see kind of what I mean. Like I'm fascinated by stuff like that, but like, people who are just like, oh, it's all vibrations, meditation changes consciousness, that kind of thing. Like, I think we all know why that kind of sounds a little wild. But at the same time, through my own experience of meditation, I have found myself using similar language because there's no other way to really describe some of the experiences that I've had. So I thought I would just make this video because, again, I accidentally explained it really well to someone recently and thought I'd see how it goes. So consciousness. When we talk about like expanding consciousness or changing consciousness, like it sounds like this really big thing, but when you experience it, it's kind of easy enough to wrap your head around. Like it feels like a thing that just happens to people sometimes, when you're doing something and you're in sort of like a flow state, you're not thinking about anything else, and then you come out of that flow state, like that's a change in consciousness, We experience changes in consciousness as a matter of course. So for meditation to give you access to new kinds of consciousness or to expand your consciousness or whatever, it's not actually that big of a deal. But it sounds like a big deal. And it also kind of is a big deal, but we'll get to why it's a big deal later. So there's a few different types of meditation. I started off doing guided meditations, got some good stuff out of that, actually learned how to relax, which was nice. But then I started hearing about transcendental meditation and like delving into the unconscious, and like I've got enough of an interest in like Carl Jung and a lot of the stuff that people were talking about with like early psychoanalytic theory and that kind of thing, that I was like, I wonder what that's like. And so like I tried it, I tried a thing called centering prayer, which is like sort of the Christian branded version of transcendental meditation. I'm wary of calling myself a Christian because like it depends on who I'm talking to. It depends on what answer I'll give to that one. But I'm someone who has a spiritual life, and I use the wealth of Christian experience that I have to articulate that, is probably what I would say. So anyway, so I did centering prayer. And centering prayer is where you pick a word and you meditate over it and you just say it over and over again, either aloud or in your mind. And then you kind of get to this point where the word kind of stops meaning something and it kind of, you have this kind of transcendent experience, which again, like, is not as big a deal as what it might sound like from the language that I'm using. Like the same way that like getting sucked into a movie and when you're in a cinema feels like a transcendent experience, it's that kind of a thing. But that didn't work for me because I have ADHD. And so even if I was using a made up word, because in transcendental meditation, it's supposed to be this like nonsensical mantra that you kind of repeat over and over again. And it's supposed to be like one that's assigned to you because it's very particular. I don't know all the ins and outs, and there's a lot of money you have to pay to get involved, which again makes me a little skeptical, but I can understand how that works. Like different people are going to respond to different sounds. I'll probably make another video at some point that'll indirectly delve into why I think that is, maybe. But or it could even be later this video. I don't know. I don't script these. I don't even get my thoughts together. So what would happen is I would pick a word, and even if it was a nonsense word, I would start trying to figure out the etymology of this word. I would start being like, that sounds kind of Latin. What would this word mean if it was a real word? And like, I'm not doing the meditation thing anymore. Like I'm thinking about the word. But then the thing that I came to eventually was breath. And breath work was great for me because there's no linguistic cultural meaning you can assign to a breath. It keeps bringing you back to your bodily sensations. And whenever I get distracted from breathing, I've like semi-consciously trained myself, mostly unconsciously. I didn't really mean to do this, but it's kind of happened. Like whenever I get distracted from my breath, I stop breathing for a little bit, and so then I notice and I come back to it. I don't hold my breath for very long, but it's usually like half a second or something. But it's enough that like I notice, I come back, I start breathing again, I come back to the breath. It's kind of a nice self-regulating kind of a thing. And I've had some very interesting experiences while doing breath meditation. So to explain what it's like, because again, I would say that I accessed a new kind of consciousness. It was a change in consciousness. It was an expansion of consciousness or whatever. If you can imagine, if everyone woke up and for 24 hours, no one could understand language, couldn't read, you could speak, you could still say words because you'd have all the neural pathways, but not even you would be able to understand the words coming out of your mouth. You wouldn't even be able to think in language. You could still think in other things, just not language. What would that be like? Like, what's left in the world? Like, what would it be like navigating the world where for 24 hours no one had language? Like, you could see a stop sign and you could recognize the stop sign as a stop sign, but you couldn't read the word stop on the sign, you know? So people could still theoretically drive and everything, but you couldn't read any signs. It would all be gibberish. You would remember what they kind of meant from context, but that'd be it. And again, I'm kind of focusing on the language itself too much here, but if you think about what it would be like going through the world where no one had any written or spoken language, what's left? And that's what meditation gets you to. This is why people talk about stilling your mind and emptying your head of thoughts and everything. I find that to be a really unhelpful framing, because talking about what you're trying to negate, what you're trying to stop, what you're trying to get out of, ends up making you focus too much on that thing, and so it's basically impossible to get rid of it. It's better to focus on what you're filling it with instead, and what you're filling it with is bodily sensation, sensory experience, just raw being, because there's no thinking, there's no making meaning out of things. And so my meditation practice a lot of the time involves me listening to the sounds in the room, and if I can hear voices, pretending as best I can that I don't understand it, and trying to listen to the timbre of the voice, the pitch, what are the qualities of the sounds that I can hear while I've got my eyes closed. Listening to the sound of my breath and feeling where it's hitting, my my nostrils or whatever. That gets me out of my head and into my body. It's not about getting out of your head, it's about getting into your body, if this is a type of meditation you respond to, because not everyone responds to the same type of meditation. If you're someone who is very good at getting in your body, but maybe getting into your head's a little harder, guided meditation can be great, because again, it's that's probably good for going the other way. I know less about that because I'm someone who really needs to get out of the head. So why is this a big deal? Why is getting into this embodied, non-linguistic consciousness such an important thing? Well, if you think about the problems we are facing in the world, the political sphere, everything, it's all contingent on language, it's all contingent on culture, it's all contingent on systems of meaning making. And a lot of it doesn't come down to how people actually feel in their bodies. What's in the room, what's going on. Like, we're so ready to escape into our phones, into any kind of entertainment to keep our minds occupied. But it's just a distraction from how we're actually feeling. How are you supposed to notice if you're hungry, if you're so busy worried about voting for the party that's going to fix the problem, And so you can end up ignoring how well things are, or how badly things are actually going in the here and now based on what meaning you're ascribing to it. So getting back into the here and now, where things actually are, there's a certain kind of truth, there's a certain kind of realness that thought can never get to. And it's kind of your birthright as a human to be able to access that. That's part of what it means to have a body. Because we're terrified about bodies. And when we do think about our bodies, it's usually through that cultural lens. What does that body mean? Like, am I skinny? Am I fat? Am I black? Am I white? Like, all these things are meanings we ascribe to bodies. And they're important. They have implications. But your body is also a sensory organ. Like, it's the lens through which your mind gathers information to make sense of the world. Like, the only reason why we have color is because we can see color. It's a little bit if a tree falls in the forest and no one was around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. What if there were no ears in the universe? What if no creature in the universe was capable of perceiving sound? Does the tree make a sound then? Not really. It vibrates the air. It creates the physical phenomenon of sound, but there's no sound. That's what If a Tree Falls in the Forest is really about. If there were no eyes in the universe, we would still have electromagnetic radiation. But we wouldn't have the visible light spectrum. The universe becomes a very different place when it's no longer being perceived. But in order to perceive it and make sense of it, you need to have systems of meaning making. But those systems of meaning making are the map. They're not the road. So meditation is much more about getting back in tune with what is, and then going back into the realm of ideas and culture and language and everything, because we have to live there. It's necessary. But everything is predicated on, everything hinges on it, everything is centered around that. And so we forget to ground ourselves in reality. And again, I know how much of a crazy meditation person I'm starting to sound with, but hopefully you've come along with me for the ride up to this point, and so it makes sense, you know? Because what other language can we use to describe all this stuff? Yeah, so that's my best job at explaining it. I have no idea if this video is any good. That's kind of not even the point. It's been a little while since my previous one, because after I responded to a few comments, I was getting into my head about stuff, and so I wanted to take a little bit of a break and kind of forget about YouTube for a week or two and then kind of come back to it. And now I feel like I just need to get something out there, and this is that something. So if you think it's good, give it a like. You know the drill. If you like this kind of content, subscribe to get more of it. Again, you know how this stuff works. None of it matters. I'm not doing this for attention, really. I'm just doing it because I made a whole video talking about why I'm doing this. It's the first one listed still. But anyway, thanks for hanging out. I hope it's been enjoyable. Yeah, let's hang out again soon.